world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
You've answered a riddle that we've been puzzling over here in the U.S. Who's him? We had no idea. He just randomly said go. He wasn't talking about Putin in that paragraph at all.
Yeah.
So we had all kinds of theories. Like, go get Trump, Brandon, let's go Brandon. Maybe he was looking for Brandon. We don't know. So there he was. I just want to say something, though, for the British audience, just so you know. Yeah. State of the Union speeches, I used to write political speeches for a living. Obviously, I've covered politics for a long time. They almost never have an impact. It's not fair to say, the speech didn't. They almost never make a difference. You rarely remember anything from them. The only memorable line I can think of is after Bill Clinton lost, the Democrats lost horrifically. He stood up and said the era of big government is over, which was an astonishing change for a Democrat. Yeah, of course, it was a total lie. But that was, just my point is, the fact that the speech was kind of a flopperoo and didn't really talk about things, they are rarely significant in American politics, just as.
So, but you might have thought in a way, Michael, that because we hadn't heard from Joe. I was getting a bit concerned about him, really, because, over in Europe, we had, Boris Johnson particularly, but other leaders as well, various press conferences, jetting between countries, etc. I appreciate this latest war is on European soil, but nonetheless, Joe has been incredibly quiet.
Well, if you want to hear from Joe Biden, you have to go to Delaware and lure him out of his home with ice cream. That's pretty much the only way to get to hear from him. But I also think that, we have an unfortunate comparison right now, and that is with Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who is, because of history and his character kind of coming together, is both being asked to communicate in a way that requires actual bravery. I love how politicians are both sides. I'm not afraid to stand up for, what are you standing up against? A negative TV ad? This guy is standing up against Chechens who want to kill him, and he's communicating very effectively with his clarity. And, politicians tend to not like clarity because they want everybody to like them. And when you start clarifying things like, for example, what is President Biden's position on energy production? His position is we've got to stop being so dependent on foreign oil, and I'm not going to let Americans make more oil. Okay, well, which one is it,
Joe?
So we like politicians like that old Southern politician who said on a contentious issue, some of the people is for it, some of the people is against it, and I'm with the people. Yeah, and that's kind of where we kind of hang out with our politicians.
That's a beautiful quote. That I shall remember that. But what's interesting about Biden, of course, is that I come back to that question we raised about America being the leaders of the free world, and certainly when I was growing up, Michael, it was there was no doubt about it. Whether you had Reagan in office, who I remember as a kid, whether you had even fast forwarding to Bush Senior and Clinton. And the like, Bush Jr. There as well, Obama. Even if you didn't like the cut of their jib, as we might say, you still kind of had no doubt that this was the country leading things. And now I'm looking at Sleepy Joe, as his predecessor would call him, and I'm thinking, does this guy know what day of the week it even is?
Well, Ian Collins, I've often suspected you of jib cutting, so we will let that go uncommented. But here's another example from our relative youths. Bill Clinton's decision to have U.S. forces get involved in Kosovo, to actually fly and bomb things. Now, admittedly, he did it on the cheap. He fly way up high. He wasn't putting guys on the ground. And I don't think the U.S. suffered any. I don't think we lost a plane. But my point is his willingness to do it. Would the America of today have the political will to do that? If Kosovo were today, would they go in? Now, obviously, Ukraine's different because it's Russia, and Russia's a nuclear power, and that changes all the math. And so, I think you can be very aggressive on the U.S. wanting to be on the forefront of defending the West and still say, probably stupid to get in a shooting war with Russia. But I don't even know if we would do a Kosovo right now. And I don't think you can blame Trump or Biden or anyone else. I think the American character has changed. And part of it is the dumb way we handled Afghanistan and Iraq. Afghanistan was the dumb war. We should have blown crap up and left. Iraq was a smart war. We should have stayed, had a force and worked to grow. Yeah. No, I disagree. I think we should be in Iraq right now with a modest force that's putting pressure on Iran, Saudi Arabia. In other words, advancing Western values. But because we did the opposite, we stayed in Afghanistan and blew off Iraq and handed it to ISIS. People look at the mess and they go, I don't have trust that Americans can do it. And so I think it's less a matter of will and more a matter of trust.
Yeah. What about this debate that this wouldn't have happened under Donald Trump?
Right. I mean, it's counterfactuals like that are all speculation. It's the crazy Ivan theory, that you just don't know what Trump's going to do. And by the way, no one ever knew what Trump didn't know what Trump was going to do. So there's, you don't know. I think we can finally put an end to the whole, Trump, Russia, he was a suck up to Putin. I keep asking you, what did Trump do to suck up to Putin other than say dumb things? And he said a lot of dumb things about him. Trump's the one who sent aggressive weapons, forward-looking weapons to Ukraine. Yeah. Now, admittedly, he wanted favors for it because, Trump's corrupt, but he sent the weapons. Biden's the one who ended the weapons. So I don't think he can do that. I want to put in one more thing, though, about the Biden speech that's going to resonate here in the U.S. is going to be a problem, and you'll see it unfolding. The number one issue for Americans right now, not even close, is inflation. No doubt about it. And you have economists saying we may ping out at 10% inflation over the summer.
Wow.
Joe Biden said nothing about inflation yesterday, except for the way to solve inflation is to spend more money, which is kind of like the way to fight alcoholism is to drink more hooch.
Just have more hooch.
It was so dumb, and it's going to hurt Democrats because that's what people want to know about. Even if he had said something that was improbable, we're going to whatever. I'm going to force the Fed to do something, or I'm going to, at least it would have said I'm doing something. Instead, just to say I'm going to send you more money to pay these higher prices, that's not going to be good.
Yeah. And what of dear old Joe and his... I don't want to personalize it too much, but hey, why not? I mean, his mental state was questioned beforehand. We used to talk, as you may remember, Michael,
right, about
dear old Joe down there in Florida, right, with the blanket on his lap, being woken up at 2 in the morning for his dinner, and it kind of hasn't really got any better. I always find it fascinating before somebody becomes a president or a prime minister that you think, I can't imagine them in that role. And then when they're in the role and the Secret Service are there and the protection, suddenly you project this greatness onto them. That hasn't really happened with Biden. Biden seems to me to look weaker and more unstable by the day.
Let me put on my professional political consulting hat and tell you with absolute certainty that between now and November, Joe Biden will not get a day younger. I'm absolutely predicting that.
True.
And that is it's a real problem. And, we had a poll, I think last week, 2/3 of Americans want him to take a cognitive ability test. We're evenly split. Even like 20% of Democrats question his physical ability to do the job. It's a tough job. Remember how young Barack Obama looked when he got sworn in? He went in looking like young Denzel Washington, and he left looking like, old Morgan Freeman. I mean, it was kind of scary because it's a tough job.
Absolutely.
And so when I think of Joe Biden, you know the story about that guy who kind of lost his mental faculties and they had to put him in a home. And so his friends felt bad for him. So they sent over a stripper. And so she comes walking in his room and a tight nurses up and she says, "I'm here to give you super sex." And the guy says, "I'll have the soup." That's Joe Biden. That's Joe Biden. He'll have the soup.
I like it, Michael. It's never dull. Thank you.